Good morning and welcome to the Independent School Show preview. I'm delighted today to be joined by Grace Stewart from the Good Schools Guide, Emma Cowley from Brewin Dolphin, and William Petty from Bursaries McFarlane. And what I'm going to do is do a quick presentation to start off with, talking about the show, and then we'll have a discussion amongst the four of us about what's going on, and we'll take questions. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll address those questions when we get to the Q&A section. Okay, so I was hoping to be in Battersea today, but there's builds going on, and I can't be there, so I'm in my office. The school show is the world's biggest school open day, and it really is a massive construction. If you haven't been, there's a huge setup that takes place to get this thing on the road. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what the show is about, the schools that are coming, the talks and speakers programs, the kinds of things that parents use the show to get answers about. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Prep School Pavilion, which is a new feature this year, and then we'll have a Q&A. Just to flag up some basic details, the show's open this coming weekend from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Saturday, and from 10:30 to 4:30 on Sunday. It's in Battersea Park. The venue is called Battersea Evolution, and there are weirdly two postcodes for this venue, but the one that we recommend you put into your map is SW84NW. That gets you to the closest gate. Right, so if you haven't been to the show before, it's an enormous hall full of schools. You'll see on the left the floor plan, and there's a mezzanine balcony where you can look out over the schools, and you'll see behind the two visitors from a couple of years ago, all the schools kind of lined up ready to meet parents. And talking to schools is actually the main thing that the show is about. We tend to often talk about lots of other aspects of the show, but the really key thing is that you've got a remarkable opportunity to meet admissions directors, heads, senior leadership team, deputies, house parents, and there's a vast amount of education, knowledge, and experience in the show. And all of the people at the show are here to discuss your child's education and help you plan the next step. And so even if you don't end up finding the perfect school in the show itself, you will have had a remarkable opportunity to talk about all the things that are at the front of your mind about your child's education with people who really do know an enormous amount about education. And every parent who comes away from the show saying, this was the most useful conversation they've ever had about their child's education. It's not like a school parents' day where you're being given feedback about how they're doing in English or maths. It's a chance to get an overview and really talk about where you see things going. Alongside these individual conversations, we run a whole series of talk programs and forums and theatres where you can hear the leaders of the sector, heads and other education experts talking about the kinds of topics that worry parents or bother parents, and you can get answers to your questions. And this year we've got 4 theatres and 100+ speakers, so it's an enormous programme. Just to show you where those theatres are. So we've got the London Parents Forum, which is up on the mezzanine floor, and opposite that is the Scalato Theatre. And then at the back corner on the right, we have the Independent Schools Council Leadership Theatre and the Good Schools Guide Forum. And I was going to talk a little bit about what each of these different spaces is all about. So the Leadership Theatre involves the Independent Schools Council, which is they're coordinating the theatre, and that's the kind of leading body of independent schools in the UK. And then they have, as part of that, subsidiary organisations that are so there's the Boarding Schools Association, the Girls' Schools Association, the Headmasters' Conference, the Independent Association of Prep Schools, for example, are all speaking on Saturday. And for example, at 12 o'clock on Saturday, the chief CEO of the Prep School Association is talking about why go to an IAPS prep school. If you've ever been to a prep school that is a member, you'll see it proudly says IAPS on the side on the front by the front gate. But what does that mean? And what kind of validation and what work do the IAPS do with prep schools that mean that being an IAPS school is different from not being an IAPS school? At 2 o'clock on that day, Sally Ann Huang, who's High Master of St Paul's and was chair of HMC, will be talking about what makes a good head. And so the leadership theatre is very much kind of sector leaders talking about how the sector is governed, how it works, and the kind of things you should be thinking about when looking for a well-governed, well-run school. Then at the front of the mezzanine floor, we have the London Parents Forum, and what this is doing is building on a lot. I mean, this is a London Parents Forum today, and this is specialising in advice for parents who live within the M25 really. And what we've done is we've divided the capital into 4: north and east, central, west, and south, to help you plan your child's education journey. And so on Saturday, there's a programme starting out that begins looking at South London, at choices, decisions, and application issues for parents in South London. And then there's a discussion about boarding and day and whether how you should think out that choice. Then a very interesting discussion about scholarships and bursaries and widening access. And then in the afternoon, there's a focus on Central London. And then on Sunday, there's a focus on West London and South London. But the second half of each of those sessions has more general topics, but there's a particular focus on these areas of London through the weekend. And then the Scolato main stage, that has, these are the most popular topics that we have always every year in the school show. So Will Petty, who's going to speak later, is opening that on Saturday with how to manage the intense competition with 11 plus. Then Good Schools Guide are talking about with Stowe about how to apply for bursaries and scholarships. Then we've got 4 boarding schools talking about what boarding does, why you should be considering it. Then we're talking about relocation. And then a very interesting topic is change is good question, how to identify if a school move would help your child, and then find the right school for your child. And there's a similar program on Sunday. If you look on our website, you can see the Sunday and Saturday programs and how they relate to each other. All the talks, well, nearly all the talks are being chaired by Ed Vasey, who some of you might have seen at the Hurlingham and in the videos of the Hurlingham event we did in the summer. And Ed's going to be in conversation, and his job, Ed's obviously was a former cabinet minister, but his job in the school show is that he's a parent with 2 teenagers, and he's on stage to represent parents and to ask the kind of questions that we think parents would like to hear answered, and then also to help moderate your questions from the audience. And then Good Schools Guide Forum is at the back of the theatre, and in a moment I will be asking Grace to tell us what the Good Schools Guide Forum is all about. So Grace, if you could turn your camera on and switch on your microphone, I'll cut to you.
Hello, hi, good morning everyone. Yes, so just very briefly for those who don't know, the Good Schools Guide has been around for about 40 years now, and we have a team of writers who visit and review schools for our books and our website, and consultants who advise parents about schools and education. If you've ever been to the show before, you will have known that we have been there for some time, I think probably since it started 15 years ago. And our stand tends to become incredibly busy with people who want their questions asked away from the schools. So we are the objective voice, perhaps. Schools, we're not allied to any schools, we're completely independent, we don't take commission from any schools, and nor can schools pay to be in our guide. It's completely up to us who we include. So we tend to get a lot of busy people, or the stand gets very busy with people asking questions about anything from how to choose a school for a particularly bright child, or for a child with perhaps some learning needs, or perhaps they just want help with the admissions process and next steps. This year, of course, it's very different in that we have a stand, not just our stand, but we also have our forum, where we hope many of you will come and be able to discuss some of these questions in a much more informal way, but still as part of a structured process. So there will be a consultant from the guide, and there will be a head from a school discussing things like what is boarding like in the 21st century, and whether single sex or co-ed is, how you choose between the two, and so on. And you'll see the different topics we'll discuss. So our very valued consultant, Camilla Smiley, who's going to be speaking on the Scalato stage about scholarships and bursaries, will then come to a much more intimate environment where our forum is, and talk about those same topics, but where we hope there'll be a lot more interaction, a lot more informality, people able to ask questions that concern them and concern the others at that forum. So we really hope you'll be able to come and join us on both Saturday and Sunday. We'll be there both days with a selection of talks on both days, and lots of our writers and consultants will be on the stand, and you'll have a chance to see what we do. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Grace. And so I thought next maybe we should just talk a little bit about the kinds of things that the show is useful to think through. So we sent an email out on Sunday which addressed kind of like 4 sort of key topics that parents come to the show with, trying to get answers about. Should your child board? How will I pay the fees? How can my child's education needs be met? And would my child suit a really academic school? And I just thought I'd dig in a little bit to those and a few other topics that the show is particularly addressing. So Grace just mentioned scholarships and bursaries, which Camilla Smiley and a whole range of talks will be addressing at the show. And obviously one of the things that Camilla will be telling you is that independent schools are all very different, and that if you really want to work out what's going on with about your chance of getting a bursary from a particular school, you have to go and talk to them. So obviously the main way that you can find out about bursaries is to use the floor of the show to go around and talk to schools about bursaries, if that's what you're looking for. And Camilla will help you understand who is eligible for bursaries, but it varies enormously from school to school. Our school fees planning I'll come back to in a moment, because we're going to talk to Brewin Dolphin about that in a second. There are enormous amounts of educational support available in the show, everything from tuition to consulting. There's information about mental health, and then also a very interesting set of the London Parent Forum is particularly addressing the kind of issues that parents in London are facing. London is incredibly complicated as a parent because it's the most competitive schools market probably in the world, and you really do need to get to know what's ahead of you, and to work out what support you need and what support your child might need. You might, having heard all that, decide what you want to do is relocate out of London, which is why we have relocation as an option. And certainly schools outside London are an aspect of the show that a lot of London parents find very useful, whether you plan to relocate to near to where some of those schools are, or send your child to board. That's one of the reasons why we have so many schools from all across the UK, is because London parents often choose schools outside London. Would my child suit a really academic school is a key question for London parents, because an awful lot of the London schools are really academic and won't suit most children. And so one of the things you might attend at the show talks about assessments and how you work out whether your child actually is suited to those kinds of schools. And there are talks from the most academic schools about what they're looking for and what's wanted and the kinds of children who suit those kinds of their kind of schools. Suitability is also a very interesting question with boarding. And we've got a whole series of sessions about how you decide whether a day or boarding school would suit your child. And there are lots and lots of things for parents to think about. It's partly about the nature of your child, but it's also about yourself and about your family and about your family's work structure and life structure. Lots of different issues to think about to work out whether boarding would be the right option for you. Then I've flagged up different kinds of schools. One of the things that's very interesting about the independent sector is that there really are a wide range of schools. And on Saturday, I think it's Saturday, we've got a talk that particularly addresses that issue, where we've got 4 or 5 schools that are all academically quite similar in terms of entrance, but they really are unbelievably different. And the independent sector is full of incredibly different schools. There are a lot of talks, therefore, about how to choose a school, what makes a good head. Now, to go back to the issue of school fees and school fees planning, most parents will not actually be eligible for bursaries. And school fees planning is a really key aspect, therefore, for many families of how they afford school fees. So I'm delighted to welcome Emma from Brewin Dolphin, who's going to talk to us a little bit about this aspect of the show.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. I'm from Brewin Dolphin, and we're one of the main sponsors for this year's event. Education, as every parent knows, can be a costly business. It's not just the case of picking the school that you think will be best for you and your children. The financial part of this decision is very important. I know it can be really stressful for some parents. According to the Independent Schools Council Census and Annual Report, the average cost of sending a child to private day school is now almost £15,000 a year. And the average boarding fee is £35,289. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. There's school uniforms, musical instruments, sports gear, school trips. These can all significantly add on to those already substantial costs. And then there's the potential for university as well. University tuition fees alone cost up to £9,250 a year. When you add in food, rent, the expense of a university education can really soar. But remember, all of this is an investment, and we help countless parents and increasingly grandparents as well, who want to do all they can to ensure that their children receive the best education. And I'm sure that resonates with many people coming to the show. What you're all investing in isn't just academic excellence, but world-class sporting, drama, and other facilities as well, and a solid preparation for whatever your children decide to do later in life. And on top of that, nobody wants their children or grandchildren to leave university saddled with debt. Now, it might seem a bit daunting at the moment. These are big sums of money, and you may feel a little bit overwhelmed by the numbers side of this decision, but please don't worry. The great news is that the financial cost of an education need not be stressful if you plan ahead with care. And the earlier you start planning, the better. At Brewin Dolphin, we regularly work with parents and families to develop a tailored education fees plan that can be built into your overall financial and investment strategy. We can help build an action plan that makes the most of your income, savings, and investments to cover the education costs for the school that you choose for your children. So we can help you work out how much you're likely to need, and we can build in things like school fee inflation, and we can help create a bespoke plan that can get you to where you need to be. Now, there's many ways to get your kids the education that you want. No one's situation or plan will be the same, but no matter where you are right now, we can help you create that plan that is tailored to your specific circumstances. We're really, really proud to be supporting this event again this year, and we've got a stand right by the entrance, and there'll be plenty of nice and friendly Brewin Dolphin people there all weekend. So please do come and see us if you've got any questions or if you'd just like a chat. My colleagues, Sarah and David and I will also be taken to the stage to talk through many scenarios that we see with our clients when it comes to this part of their plan. We've got real life stories of what people face and how together we can create that plan and make it work for them and their family. Hopefully this will help if you find the financial side of this decision troublesome, because we're there to help with solutions, answers, and hopefully a clearer path through all of this. Thank you, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you very much, and we'll come back to you in a second to talk a bit more about that. So I just wanted to quickly talk about ticket choices and what the differences are between the different ticket choices this year. So first of all, everything you've heard about so far is free if you book in advance. We really do encourage you to book in advance for all sorts of, it mainly because it helps us enormously with logistics to know how many people are coming on each day. And so for that reason, entrance to the school show has always been free for people who book in advance. If you leave it till you get to the event itself, and by advance, I do mean almost if you walk, as you're walking across the car park. I mean, just as long as you have booked and got a ticket before you come through the door. If you come through the door without a ticket, it costs £15. And then we also have two other ticket options, the £30 ticket and the £200 ticket. And those really are about offering a different level of support for parents who need help with making use of, with using the show to enhance their school search. And both tickets are that support is organised by Bursaries McFarlane. I'm delighted to welcome Will Petty from Bursaries McFarlane, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's involved.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, so it's excellent to be heading back to the Independent Schools Show after such a long absence with the show in its original headquarters in Battersea. With our extra tickets, with our support tickets, rather premium tickets, we have two versions of that. We have a premium ticket as well as a gold ticket, the latter of which you will have a one-on-one consultation with an expert from Bursaries McFarlane, who'll be able to discuss your specific situation and exactly what it is, which children or child you're hunting for, and also not only give you an amazing private consultation, but push you back out into the show brilliantly prepared. I will be in our prep school pavilion for quite a few sessions with our premium ticket holders, and we'll be giving an inside track into the 11+, particularly the 11+ in London. It's one of those entry points that scares everybody intensely in the London parent community. So we'll be working with prep schools and talking groups of parents through how they can go out into the show, where they should be looking. There's so much to choose from, like every year. COVID perhaps has pushed the country versus town debate even further up the food chain. It's constantly a big topic for us, but it does really look like, that's again one of these things that the pandemic has made everybody think twice about, with the flexibility coming back to working. So there's renewed vigor. There's a real excitement about being back and being able to host all these fabulous schools, many of whom, of course, don't forget, haven't been able to host their own tours. So, this is probably a really early opportunity for all of them to get back to showing you exactly how fabulous they are, why this is such a great decision as a family, and a visit to the show that can really save you an enormous amount of time, and also with our extra ticket options give you unparalleled support both beyond the show and at the show itself.
Great, thanks, Will. And if everyone else would like to turn their cameras on now, I think we should just go into a sort of Q&A or looser chat format. So the first question I've got really for everybody else on the panel is there anything that I've forgotten to talk about? Probably loads of things. A bit of a blank silence. Maybe I've covered everything. Emma, you were yesterday. You were talking about the silver tickets and how you thought that would be how you'd come into the show. Do you want to Just talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it was the prep school pavilion that that we were talking about. So I think that's how I would approach it if I were at that stage. My daughter's not quite 3 yet, so I'm kind of coming up to this, but not quite there yet. But it was the fact that the prep school pavilion provides that place for parents to go and take a bit of a step back and hear about how best to plan their approach to the show. I think that was, how you make the most of it. I think it, for some it might be maybe a little bit daunting unless they have a plan. So the fact that we've got the prep school pavilion there with the sort of the sessions with you guys sort of explaining how to make the most of that experience and get what you need out of it, that would definitely be the way that I would need. I would need to be handheld that way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting thing, isn't there, that school teachers are, for a lot of people, are quite intimidating figures, particularly head teachers. And so a lot of parents are nervous when they go to talk to schools, and it really does help to have an agenda and to work out what it is you're trying to do. And I think one of the things Will be talking about, but he might want to explain a bit more now, is that we have a concept at Burners McFarlane of long listing and short listing. And there is a point in your school search where what you need to do is open up your mind to get your list longer, particularly if you've got a few local schools that everyone's talking about that you know about already, but and you're thinking, well, is that all there is? And perhaps, Will, you might talk about when should parents be long listing, and when should they start to be net focusing their choices?
I mean, yeah, one of those wonderful "how long is a piece of string" questions. And I think, when we first started the show, gosh, help me out, Guy, 15 years ago, the COVID thing's slightly thrown me a little bit. But when we first started it, I think we thought that families would never have 9-year-olds and they'd be coming to talk about the 11 plus. Certainly in the case of the senior school option, actually what we found was quite a lot of prams came flying in the door, and a lot of people really planning ahead. And no one complained about someone that planned too early in advance. So this long-term planning is a really great idea. The show is brilliant for that, as well as things that you're going to need from the school in the next couple of years. But there are lots of long-term planners there, and obviously, if you're coming to look at, say, nursery schools, you might get suddenly drawn to a prep school. Next thing you know, they're talking about a senior boarding school, and you're chatting away to several major public schools, and that's sort of brilliant because, yeah, sure, you've come for a specific task elsewhere, but getting that oversight, particularly for families who've yet to be in the system, and even if they have been themselves as students, a lot's changed. 21st century independent education is not what it was when I was with Hare and at school, in 1995. It really is a totally different experience, and all the better for it. So at the show, it's for a lot of families, I think, probably a really exciting, first step. In terms of long listing for senior schools, I do encourage all of our families to really look at having a pretty solid stab at your exploration in, around year 4, particularly now with COVID and all these restrictions, and organising things like school visits isn't that straightforward. So the more time you can give yourself to do your window shopping, again, the show, amazing opportunity. We're going to bring them all into one place, reduce the amount of times that you have to worry about going out and being around other people and infection and all the pandemic stuff we now live with. So, it's much more efficient from that point of view. But year 4 is the time that I'd really like to do that. And then when it comes to year 5, you've got your eye on the prize, you've got time to go back and visit some schools perhaps. And then as soon as the autumn of year 6 starts, you're eyeing up the final run into the largely January 11 plus assessments known in London.
Thanks, Will. And obviously there was talking about senior school entrance. There's another time, and we won't ask him about other levels, but there are other timetables if we're thinking about sixth forms, or thinking about prep or pre-prep and nurseries. And then, of course, also you might want to be moving. There are other reasons why you might be looking for a school. You might be entering because you're moving house, for example, and you need a school. You need to look for a school right now. In fact, someone in the Q&A box said that they're moving to London, and which day do you recommend us attending for relevant talks? Well, the first thing I would recommend you do is have a look at the school show website at the timetable and work out which ones seem relevant to the kind of areas of London that you're thinking about. But I mean, first of all, the tickets are valid for both days. So it could be that you dive in on one day and then come back to do a longer exploration the second day, but if that's too much, then and you really do need to choose, you kind of just need to kind of look around the talks program and think, okay, which will be most helpful for us. Someone else is asking, should they bring their children to the show? And they've got a girl of 13 and a boy of 15, and the answer is very much yes. Schools love meeting potential applicants and will want to talk to them, and even very young children come to the show. There are lots of babies, lots of I mean, obviously we don't have a creche, so you need to bear that in mind slightly, but one thing that people do also is come with another member of the family and use Battersea Park, which is an amazing location for entertaining children. It's got a Go Ape, it's got an amazing playground, lots going, a zoo right next door to the show. So it could be that you bring your children and then send them off for a bit with someone else, and then meet up with them after you've had some conversations with schools. Grace, will you bring children, do you think?
Well, you've persuaded me. I was going to say no, I wouldn't bring children. And the reason I would say probably not is that I would be worried that they would get bored and put them off the whole process, because I mean, it's really useful for them to meet like potential headmasters who may be their headmasters one day. But I would be concerned that there's a lot of chat, and there's a lot of chat about the kind of nitty gritty, which you don't really want them to get bored by. So I would err on the side, I mean, depending on how old the child is, but I would be cautious about taking them and putting them off the whole thing, because it's quite full on, and they may well, you know, tire a bit, and then that would cast a pall over the process in the future.
I certainly, if I was doing it, I would bring my mother. I mean, grandparents are very useful in that, in many ways, but to take them into Battersea Park, you know, I might whiz them around and have a quick look with them at the beginning, and then send them off for a bit. But a lot depends on your children. The talks, I would say, are very parent focused. They're not child centric talks.
I have a question which you didn't cover. I've thought of something finally.
Mm-hmm.
A very comprehensive tour of the weekend. Is that I didn't identify much about the sixth form, and I mean that would be a chance for young people to come to the show if they were looking at sixth form options. And when you're applying for sixth form, normally, you know, it should be the student more than the parents even who are getting involved. And I wondered what sort of things you have, or perhaps it's not that focused on that this year.
Oh no, it totally is. I mean, there are some talks about changing schools, and there are an enormous number of sixth forms exhibiting at the show, including some specialist sixth form colleges. I mean, I think you're right that actually that is an age where your children should come to the show. There are always lots of sort of 14, 15, 16-year-olds at the show with their parents talking to schools, and schools like to see sixth form applicants. I don't think, I'm not going to cast my mind into the theatre programme. I don't think we have a particular sixth form topic this year, partly because actually most of the topics that would concern sixth form choices are covered in other topics, but also so much is to be gained from talking to schools one-to-one, really. Okay, well, I think unless anyone else has got any other questions, let me just have a quick. Okay, hang on. Someone's asking about car parking transport options. Yes, there is a relatively small car park outside the venue, which gets full up pretty quickly. If you get a gold ticket, you get a reserved car park space, but otherwise it's a bit first come, first serve. But there are 1,000 pay and display car park spaces just around the corner, just inside the park, and around the park there are various other car parks, so you can quite easily park. And then someone is asking a very good question about, can you access information discussed on Saturday if you attend on Sunday. Well, yes and no, I think is the true answer to that one. So yes, the Scalato talks all get filmed, and so they'll be on our website. Like as you'll see from previous years, you can access talks on our website. But we won't be filming all of the talks. We're going to do audio recordings of all the other talks, and over the year we'll gradually issue those as podcasts. But as you can imagine, we've hugely expanded the talks program this year, and we just decided it was sort of beyond us to turn them all into videos like we've done before. And then someone's asked who's entitled for bursaries. What happens if the child doesn't have a particular gift, but is academically fine? And I'm not going to try and answer that specific question now, because that is precisely the kind of thing you can find out at the show, and it's too big a topic to do in a 1 minute answer. So I think we've covered everything that's been asked, and so I'd just like to say to the panel, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you all at the show on Sunday.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you at the weekend.